I've started a new process here, and I'm calling this one UiPath 12 Build Data Tables. What we're going to do in this video is read the data from the employees table that we've been using in the previous videos, and then write out that same data with the columns in a different order, removing the columns we don't need. To do this, we'll use the Build Data Table activity. I'm going to start off by adding some activities that we're already familiar with. I will add in a read range workbook. And I did change the location of the employees table. It is now in C, UiPath, Data, and there's our employees table. The sheet name is still employees. I will also need a variable to hold the data. I'll come over to the data table as the output, hold down Control and press K, and then type in DT underscore employees. And pressing Enter adds the variable. I'm also going to update the display name to be read in employees. I'm also going to add in a for each row in data table, and update that display name to be for each row in DT employees. And we'll add in the data table DT employees. Now from the previous videos, we're already familiar with what these two activities do. I'm going to open up the Excel input file to remind us of what the input looks like. And we see along the top here, we've got last name, first name, gender, and so on until we get to the end where we have department and group. For the output of this process, we want to make the department and group the first two columns. I'm going to close the input file, and I want to add in the build data table to the top of our workflow. Now, it does not have to go at the very top of the workflow, but it must be defined before we start to use it. So I like to put something like this at the top. Now I'm going to click on the data table, and it opens up a pop-up. And now I'm going to click on the pencil here in column 1 to edit the column. I want this column name to be group and a type of string. Then the second column, we want this one to be department, but we also want this one to be a string. We're getting a little warning here that all data in this column will be lost. We don't have anything in there yet, so it's not a problem. I want to add a third column, so I'm going to click the little plus sign here. The third column will be last name. That one is string as well. Clicking OK. And clicking plus for one more column, first name, and that one will be a string as well. Now we see a line here, text. That's showing that we can hard code or type in a line of data right here. I'll add something in for each column. We have text in the group. I'll add test DEPT for department. We'll put in test LN for last name and then FN for first name. And I'll click OK. So we've got our data table built, but we still need to give it a data table name. So I'll come over to the output and I'll press Control K to create a data table variable and paste in the value DT underscore GRP DEP last first for group, department, last name, first name. And I'll also put this up under the display name for build DT underscore group, department, last first. There are two different ways of populating a data table, so I'm going to add a sequence in for each one. We'll start with adding the sequence for the first one, and I'll update the display name to be 1 add data row. Now to add a data row, the first thing we're going to need is a data row variable. So I'll come down here to the data manager and create a new variable. I'm going to start this with the prefix DTR for data table row, and then add new row. Going over to the data type, I'm going to click on the browse for types, and I'm just going to type in here data row. And there we see data row pop up right here. There's only one place, so I will double click on it and set the data row to be the type of our new DTR new row. Now that we have our new data row, we'll need to tell it what data table we want it to be a new row of. So I'll add in an assign and put the DTR, data row, new row, into the to variable. And it's going to be from the new data table group department last first. And then we also need to add a dot new row. Now our new data table row will have the properties of the group department last first data table. We want to populate it with some data. So I'm going to use this multi-assign down here. And I want to put in the save to values of data table new row group. Let's add in 4 lines here, 2, 3, 4. And we'll put in all the DTRs first. To DTR new row department, DTR new row last name, and DTR new row first name. And we're going to put in the values, current row group. And if we look up a little bit, current row, that's where we're getting this from. Current row department, current row last name, and current row first name. Now we have our data table row created and populated. We need to add it to the data table. For that, I will add the activity, add data row. And there it is. We'll put this inside our sequence here. And in the data row, DTR underscore new row. And the data table will be DT group department last first. And let's update the display name to add data row to group department last first. In the multi-assign, we'll update this display name to be, we'll call this populate data table group department last first. And this assign up here, we will make this create DTR new row. So now we've got our new data table populated. We want to write this out. So let's minimize some of these so we can see what's going on. We're going to build the new data table. We're going to read in the employees. And then for each row in the data table employees, we're going to populate the group table. So let's update this to be populate data table employees. And now we want to write this out. So I will use a write range workbook. Let's just add it here at the bottom. We already have our Excel file created. It's in the C drive, UiPath, data. The datasheet name, will make this data row. And then the data table will be the DT group last first. I'll run this and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, it's completed. There's nothing in the output down here that we have added because we haven't logged any messages there. I'm going to open up the employee table file and we'll go to the data row. And right up at the top, we see that text, test department, test last name and first name. We don't need that, but I was showing that we can hard code data in, and then it's got the data below it, just as we expect. So I am going to close this, go into the build data table, and delete this text test line. We don't need that. Going down to the populate data table employees, I'm going to hold down Control and press D to comment out or disable the sequence 1 add data row. And I'm going to add a new sequence. And I'll call this one 2 add array row. And inside this sequence, I'm going to add an add data row. And we haven't really talked about arrays yet. But in short, how we're going to create our array is I'm going to start with a curly brace and then put in the first value, which is current row group. I'll add a comma. And we see that UiPath already added in that closing curly brace. So we won't need to add that. After the current group, I've got a comma, space, current row department, comma, space, current row last name, comma, space, and current row first name. We're putting in the array row, so we're going to leave the data row empty and give it the data table, DT, group department last first. That all looks good. One other thing I want to change is in the right range workbook, instead of data row, I'm going to make this array row. So it's going to add a new tab for us here. And now I'll minimize everything so we can see the entire workflow. And I'll run this. And once again, we don't see any custom messages in the output panel because we didn't add any. And I will open up the employee table output file and click on the tab Array Row. And there we see it. Group, department, last name, first name, and then all of our data. And we'll look at how to sort this data by group, department, and last name in the next video for UiPath.